Every Godzilla movie reviewed in 20 seconds, 35 movies and 65 years of film summed up in 20 seconds or less. So let's begin. Godzilla. A truly iconic piece of cinema, one of the most important movies of the decade, with really haunting stories and themes, with a great cast of characters that really sell the tragedy. Godzilla has absolutely no character in this, he's just a nuclear bomb made flesh. Watch the original, not the American cut. Godzilla Raids Again. Released only 6 months after the original, it completely loses the tone of the original movie. Anguirus is a welcome addition, and it's the first ever Godzilla versus, which is the highlight of the movie, but it can't save this very rushed and basic story with very basic characters. King Kong vs Godzilla. A clash of the titans that doesn't disappoint. Godzilla and Kong both have equal screen time, both having their moments to shine, and with a truly iconic final fight. It's a really fun movie with entertaining characters and an interesting story. Really, when you look at it, it's Toho remaking the original King Kong, but with Godzilla as well. Mothra vs Godzilla. One of the most influential Godzilla movies, it set the groundwork for most of the series. It has a great story about capitalism and greed. Mothra herself doesn't get a lot of screen time, but Godzilla is truly the star of the show, stealing every scene he's in and just showing how invincible he really is. Ghidorah, the three-headed monster. Ghidorah's introduction doesn't quite stick the landing. The final battle is great and all the monsters are fun, but Ghidorah does feel forgotten at times, with the focus more being on Godzilla and Rodan fighting it out, and this is the start of Godzilla turning into a full-blown hero. And also the human characters are a bit dull. Invasion of the Astro Monster. Very slow, and that's clearly because the budget ran out. The kaijus get very little screen time, and it has some of the shortest fights in the entire franchise. It's also the first to use stock footage. However, the Exilians are just a riot, and Nick Adams steals the show, with a tragic romance with a female Exilian. And the Exilians basically set up the plot for the rest of the Showa era. Ebirah, Horror of the Deep. Meant to be a Kong movie, and it clearly shows. Godzilla acts more like Kong, getting interested in ladies, and the Red Bamboo are just hilariously crap for being a terrorist army. But it does have a very fun cast of characters, and the movie never really feels slow once the team get on the island. However, Mothra is clearly falling apart, and Ebirah is just weak. And the less said about the bloody condor, the better. Son of Godzilla. The turning point for the Showa era, Millennium is just horrifying to look at, and it's another island-based Godzilla movie. The cast isn't as interesting, but the story is fun. Kumonga scared me as a child, and the Kamakuras make a great punching bags for Godzilla. He was also a surprisingly better father than most humans. Destroy all monsters. For supposedly the final Godzilla movie, it really doesn't focus on these monsters at all. More interested in the human characters and this rocket prop that they were clearly very proud of. The monsters only truly get a focus in the final battle with Ghidorah, which is one of the best fights in the entire series, but man, you have to get through some basic humans with dull characters, and the Kilax are no Exilians. Godzilla's Revenge. Absolute trash. The use of stock footage is half the movie, Manila is pathetic, and Gabra might be the worst villain kaiju in the entire series. And oh my god, the main human child character is one of the most annoying characters you'll ever see in a Godzilla movie. So much so that you kind of want the criminal bad guys to hurt him. Godzilla isn't even in the last 20 minutes as it turns into more of a Home Alone movie. Thank god this movie isn't canon. Godzilla vs Hedorah. The weirdest Godzilla movie ever made, and that's saying something. Godzilla has gone full-blown hero at this point, and for an environmental movie it doesn't really stick with its message. The whole pollution angle kind of gets forgotten about, for some more psychedelic imagery. Hedorah is scary for kids, and this is the movie with Godzilla flying, which has to be seen to be believed. Godzilla vs Gigan. The first Godzilla movie I ever saw. Looking back, it's not great. The aliens are at least an interesting threat, but the human characters are so bland and the use of stock footage is apparent, and the Godzilla and Ghidorah suits are clearly falling apart. But Gigan is a great design, and we have Anguirus, so that's always a bonus point. Godzilla vs Megalon, hilariously crap, it's just amazingly fun to watch. The villains are pathetic, and Megalon is hyped up to be this godlike kaiju, but just acts like a child. It's as cheap as they get for Godzilla movies, the human characters are basic as hell, and really this movie only gets a 4 because of just how hilarious it is to watch. Also, Megalon and Gigan make a great double act. Oh, and Jet Jaguar is there too. Godzilla vs Mechagodzilla. The Showa era is back on form, with a much more mature story, which reminds us of why we love Godzilla, but still manages to keep Godzilla as the hero while also giving us an evil Godzilla, which turns out to be Mechagodzilla in probably his best ever design. The battles are great, King Caesar tries to be effective, and Godzilla's 20th anniversary movie is a bit of a celebration of the past and also the current state of Godzilla, while also creating a new iconic kaiju. Terror of Mechagodzilla. The Showa era ends with a bit of a misfire. The kaiju are great on screen, but you have to wait a full hour for Godzilla to show up. The human characters are strong with a tragic love story, but it takes way too long for the story to get going, and the terror of Mechagodzilla is only in the last 20 minutes. Return of Godzilla. A great return to Godzilla's more destructive roots. The story is a great telling of the Japanese position during the Cold War. The special effects are a massive improvement, and the addition of the Super X is a great new weapon. However, most of the human characters are bland as all hell, and Godzilla either looks really threatening or really goofy. Godzilla vs. Biollante. Massively underrated. This movie basically creates the entire Heisei era formula for the rest of the era. Most of it is based around this movie. The human characters are great, and this is the first appearance of Miki Sayagusa. It also follows up the last movie very well, while also setting everything up for the rest of the era. Also, while Biollante has very little screen time, the craft that went into this monster suit is just amazing. Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah. You'd think when the franchise has gone into time travel that they're running out of steam. This is one of the most imaginative and creative scripts that the Godzilla franchise has had since Mothra vs. Godzilla. There are a lot of great characters with really interesting plots that twist and turns enough to keep you interested. It's really just a great watch. At this release we'd get a better dub of it soon. Godzilla vs. Mothra. A very well made movie with an interesting plot. For a Mothra movie, but that's its problem. It's a Mothra movie with Godzilla forced in at the last minute. Godzilla really does feel like a third wheel in his own movie. You could have replaced him with any kaiju, like Bagan. This movie really would have been better if they stuck to the original intent of it. Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla 2. The Heisei era is right back on form with a fantastic update of Mechagodzilla, Rodan and even Godzilla's son, while also finally finding something to do with Mickey. They put her at a real moral crossroads. This is also the first Heisei era Godzilla movie where Godzilla isn't the outright villain. He's gone into his anti-hero persona, which he keeps for the rest of the era. The humans aren't evil trying to stop him, but you don't feel like Godzilla is ever the bad guy. You still root for him to win. Godzilla vs. Space Godzilla. The Heisei era's only real dud. It feels like the series is completely running on fumes at this point, and everything just feels tired. The plot is basic. We have another mecha in Mulgira, who does look awesome but just can't hold a candle to the other mechas. It's a very generic and tired plot. Space Godzilla, while being a new original kaiju and having some awesome powers, his simple take over the world plot just feels like something out of the Showa era. It's nothing new. Godzilla vs. Destroyer. If there was ever going to be an ending for the Godzilla franchise, I can't think of a better ending than this movie. One of the most dark and tragic Godzilla movies has ever been, since Godzilla. It's a beautiful ending to Mickey and Godzilla and all the other characters we've got to know, while still leaving the door open for Godzilla Jr. to take the mantle of King of the Monsters. Destroyer is such an amazing design and brilliant new kaiju, and the ending is just brilliant, bringing Godzilla back full circle. Okay, it's all been said about how much this movie sucks as a Godzilla movie, but some people say it's still a decent monster movie. I'm not one of them. This movie sucks. It's a Transformers movie more interested in American Army masturbation than it is making a good monster movie. Zilla is an interesting design and I'm glad he's getting some more attention nowadays, but it can't excuse the incredibly dumb plot and horrendous acting. Godzilla 2000. A nice reboot of Godzilla, but it does feel a bit rushed because, well, it was. It doesn't really leave much to chew on. It's a good first Godzilla movie to show the kids. Godzilla has plenty of screen time, but the human characters are really dull and won't leave any kind of impact. It's a fine Godzilla movie. Everything about it is perfectly average. Godzilla vs. Megaguirus. Another reboot which is confusing considering they use the exact same Godzilla design as the last movie, and it brings absolutely nothing to the table. It feels like a mix of basic Showa and basic Heisei era movies. The human characters are weirdly annoying and their attitudes and behaviour make them kind of insufferable. It's a very, very basic Godzilla movie that brings nothing new to the series. It gets a 3 mainly because of the fight between Godzilla and Megaguirus is one of the best in the entire franchise. Godzilla, Mothra, King Ghidorah, Giant Monsters All Out Attack! My favourite Godzilla movie ever made. It is another reboot, but does something new with classic kaijus, and the special effects are the best that Toho have ever done. The story has this weird mystical and spiritual side to it, and also to Godzilla and the other kaiju. The fights are some of the best in the series, and Godzilla is sadistically evil in this movie. The human characters are also some of the best written and acted in the whole series. It's just perfect to me. Even the soundtrack enhances every scene with this mystical aura about it. I just love this movie. Godzilla against Mechagodzilla. This movie is a perfect example of why human characters are important to a Godzilla movie. Akira Yuashi might be the best ever character in a Godzilla movie. Her story and arc are so well written, you completely feel for her. In this movie about a giant robot fighting a giant monster, the Mechagodzilla design is also really amazing. The only real weak point of this movie is Godzilla himself. He just feels so weak, he doesn't really come off as the antagonist of this movie. You almost feel sorry for him. Godzilla Tokyo SOS. I'm not a fan of this one. When you take away the best things about the last movie and replace it with a downgrade, it just makes the flaws of the last movie much more noticeable. They even throw in an annoying kid character for good measure. This is basically the same movie as the last entry, but with Mothra thrown in, and it's nowhere near as good. Godzilla Final Wars. If I was to critique this as a movie, it wouldn't score very high. But as a piece of entertainment, Godzilla Final Wars is just pure fun. It is the best way to celebrate 50 years of Godzilla by just having a big, massive party and everyone's invited. It's just amazing how much they fit into this movie and still pay homage to everything that's gone before in the Godzilla franchise. It's a very simple plot that's very easy to follow, and it is sort of a bad movie, but it's just so damn entertaining you don't care. Godzilla 2014. I don't think this movie has aged very well. Us fans love to see a Godzilla movie finally on the big screen, so much that we did overlook the problems. The characters are bland as hell, and the cuts away from Godzilla and Mutos are so frustrating because you're cutting away to something that isn't interesting. That being said, there is plenty of good stuff in here. I love the Godzilla design, the Mutos are interesting, the train bridge scene is just amazing, and this movie clearly gets Godzilla. Shin Godzilla. With everything that Godzilla movies have done before, it's amazing that this is really the first political thriller Godzilla movie. It's a stand-up of how politics are done in Japan, and it does not hold its punches. This Godzilla is one of the most interesting takes on the monster, and while this movie does have a large cast, most of them manage to stand out on their own, with some very well written characters and scenes. Some people say it's boring, I disagree. Godzilla Planet of Monsters. Well, here we go. This movie is actually decent and sets up the foundation of a good plot, but my god does it take forever to get going. 2/3 of this movie takes place on that bloody ship, and our characters are just so one-dimensional as hell. This movie promised us a planet of monsters, and all we get are still images and 3 other monsters, and 2 of them are just the same monster, one of them bigger than the other. But still, it has good setup for the next movie. However, Godzilla City on the Edge of Battle completely drops the ball. With an amazingly unlikable main protagonist, bland one-dimensional characters with no personality, and Godzilla is yet again barely in it. Oh, and the movie advertisement promised Godzilla vs Mechagodzilla. We get Godzilla vs a city. Way to waste a great premise. Godzilla Planet Eaters, and with that this trilogy limped pathetically to the end, with the worst Ghidorah and maybe the worst Godzilla and Ghidorah fight in the entire series. Oh, and Mothra's here as well. She's built up for the whole movie and gets 5 seconds of screen time, and the ending basically means that everything we did watch was pointless. This movie has some good points and the cast are trying and the music is great, but man, way to waste our time. What a massive waste of a great idea. And finally, Godzilla King of the Monsters. And we end off with the most recent Godzilla movie, and it is good, but not without its flaws. It might be the best version of Ghidorah ever put to screen, and they clearly understand the Ghidorah and Godzilla rivalry. Everything involving the monsters and the world building and the music is great, however the humans characters are yet again bring this movie down, being very bland and not very interesting. Only Ken Watanabe's character of Dr. Shirozara is interesting, and well, he's dead now, so let's see what they can do for Godzilla vs Kong. But still, it's a good Godzilla movie. And with that, we are done. Oh boy, this was much longer than I thought it was going to be. Tell me what you think in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe, join my Discord, join my Patreon, and I will see you guys next time.